The Championship is really heating up on this Good Friday. Burnley go clear at the top of the league ahead of Leeds. Sheffield United look resigned to getting a playoff spot. Third place looks to be where they're going to be finishing. Bristol City and Coventry look to be set for the playoffs. But Middlesbrough got a 94th minute win from a penalty from Tommy Conway against Plymouth, which is really hotted up the Championship playoff race, because all of a sudden, a certain period of time, it looked like Bristol City and Coventry were going to go, 5 points clear of any other team, but Middlesbrough got a huge win away at Plymouth, at home to Plymouth, which keeps them in it. Bottom of the table, it's so tight. Plymouth 40 points. Cardiff 42 points. They've got a game to play at Sheffield United. Might be different by the time you're watching this video. Luton 43 points alongside Derby. Derby afloat to the relegation zone on goal difference. Then we've got Hull, who lost, Oxford, who haven't played yet, and Portsmouth, who got an emphatic 5-2 win away at Norwich City. Norwich City are one of those teams who I just can't take seriously. On their day, probably top 6 team in the Championship, but when it's not their day, one of the worst. Genuinely, one of the worst. So, where does that leave us? So, as I say, I think Burnley and Leeds are going to be the top 2. Sheffield United are going to be playing one of Bristol City or Coventry for the playoff places, providing that they don't bottle it and Middlesbrough win all 3 matches. So it looks like Middlesbrough are going to lose out on the playoffs yet again. Should Carrick be going? You're going to have to let me know, because I think this is the second season now where the expectation is top 4 and he's failed to do it. So is it a project at Middlesbrough, because they have some pretty good squads? Last season they finished 8th. They missed out on the playoffs by 4 points. It was Norwich with David Wagner who ended up making the playoffs, and they were like a pretty rough team. They weren't very good. Middlesbrough last season had the likes of Latte Lath, Azaz. West Brom are going to miss out on the playoffs. Millwall lost by a heavy defeat, so they look to be 4 points off the playoffs. It's unlikely that they'll make them now. It was 5-3 to Portsmouth, sorry. So yeah, Portsmouth won 5-3. They're ahead of the relegation zone. Stoke won 2-0 against Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday haven't won a game since God knows when. I know that when Sheffield United beat them in the derby to get the double over them, Danny Roll basically said, "Oh, our season's not over." It is. You've not won since then, Mr. Roll. Burnley got a poxy 2-1 win away at Watford. Watford down to 9 men, and Burnley didn't score in that situation, so they kept it 2-1. It's annoying because they probably got the best team in the league, Burnley have. Maybe Leeds, but probably Burnley. And Scott Parker has them setting up to play the most boring, cagey, turgid football I've ever seen. The likes of Cullen should be creating from deep, not just playing sideways passes. They get most of the chances from the likes of Jadon Anthony, Hannibal, Edwards, who play in the front 3 behind Zian Fleming. And they're the ones who really just cut inside, play 1-2s and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, the football works. They're probably going to win the league. But it's so underwhelming, the style which Scott Parker has them playing to win the league. It might work in the Premier League. That's the frustrating thing, because teams who go up, like Company's Burnley, dominating matches, don't play that way in the Premier League and succeed. Norwich have been a case study of that for years. Burnley, Leeds. So we'll have to see on that once they're promoted. I'm 99% sure that Burnley are promoted. How are they going to do in the Premier League? Best defence in the Championship by far. I think they've conceded 14, 15 goals this season. Potentially the best defence ever. Swansea won 1-0 against Hull, so Hull are nowhere near out of this relegation fight yet. After a decent manager bounce from Ruben Sayas, they're only 2 points ahead of Luton and 2 points ahead of Derby. So they've got a bit of safety blanket there in the way that there's 3 matches to go, and the 2 teams below them still need to get a win to go above them, especially with goal difference being accounted for. But Hull at the start, last season Hull got 7th, I think, with Liam Rosenior. Then this season Tim Volta came in, left them in the relegation zone. Ruben Sayas came in and had a bit of a new manager bounce, but it's so underwhelming as to how their season's gone, because the likes of Casey Palmer, Joe Goldhart, Hughes McLaughlin, they have quite a few players. Cody Drammer, Kamara, they signed Matt Crooks in January. They've got so many good players, and it's probably because their confidence took a big hit at the start of the season from the style of football that they're playing initially. but they're not a bad team. They shouldn't be in a relegation fight. It reminds me a bit of Birmingham last season in a way, because the squad on paper isn't a relegation fight worthy team. It's just a confidence issue, maybe something behind the scenes. Hull were having a really good project with Liam Rossini. Ripped it up, signed a bunch of new players, got rid of a bunch of players, and that's what happens. And Swansea are another weird case where Alan Sheehan, is he the manager? Is he still temporary manager? I'm not sure. They lost their best player in Matt Grimes at the January transfer window, and they're not even playing bad stuff. They might even be playing better. I look at their squad in the very attacking in a 4-2-3-1. Josh Key's a standout player for me in the way that I don't rate him that much. I feel like he can get exposed very easily. Swansea home and dry. Time for them. They've got 3 games now just to experiment and do whatever they want. They're not going down, certainly not going up. Sunderland lost. Bristol City got the win. As I say, Bristol City, they're the form team going into this playoff alongside Coventry. And I'm a Sheffield United fan. It really, really worries me coming up against Bristol City. I'd rather come up against Coventry, genuinely, because Bristol City absolutely played Sheffield United off the park. Bristol City also absolutely played Sunderland off the park today, on this Good Friday. Just look at that shot map. 27 shots that Bristol City had. An XG of 2.36. 77% possession. Yes, Sunderland got a red card, but that was only in the second half. In the first half, Bristol City still dominated with 76% of the ball. Liam Manning is potentially the most underrated manager in the Championship right now. He's not up for the PFA manager of the season. And I don't know why. Why is Scott Parker and Daniel Farke up there? They're the best squads in the league. They're doing as expected. Chris Wilder, I can make a case for him because he had a big squad turnover, but even then, an extremely valuable team. Frank Lampard came in at Coventry, did an extremely good job. Maybe he should be in the running. But why is Liam Manning not being more hyped up? And it's a weird one, because up until about February this season, a lot of Bristol City fans were saying Liam Manning football is boring, it's turgid, we don't want to see it. Liam Manning out, and all of a sudden they're 5th, they're 4 points ahead of Middlesbrough in 7th. They're, as I say, the form team going into the playoffs. All they've got to do is get one more win between now and the end of the season, and then they've solidified a playoff place. So yeah, Championship table on screen now. It's extremely interesting to see where we go from here. Sheffield United have still got to play a match, whether they win, lose or draw, probably playoff bound. Leeds have still got a game to play against Oxford. If Leeds don't win that, I'd be extremely surprised. So, down in the comments, who's getting promoted and who's getting relegated? I'm saying Leeds and Burnley getting promoted. And I'm saying for the relegation spots, it's difficult. Plymouth, Cardiff and Derby. I think Luton's win earlier on in the day against Derby at Derby's Pride Park Stadium is huge. And I feel like John Eustace's new manager bounce has potentially worn off a bit. And I feel like Matt Bloomfield has Luton playing their old style of football. If you need to just lump it into the air, into a corner, you'll do it, because we'll win the second balls. That's exactly how Luton are playing, and I think they'll stay up. Plymouth, Cardiff and Derby down. Let me know down in the comments. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll catch you later on.